and activist. He's the author of the book Hamas, Unwritten Chapter. And also, on my side, he's also a TV presenter now on Al-Hiwar channel. And I urge you all, those who can understand Arabic, to watch his highly successful program, Rajaat. Very interesting. And also, I believe he recently came back from the old apartheid recently. South Africa, so maybe he has something to say about that. So I'd welcome Dr. Azzam Tamimi.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and I commend your courage and perseverance. You had no other option but to continue to do the right work. I was in South Africa attending a seminar in Pretoria about ethnicity and modern nation states, the case of Israel. And we had a number of academics from around the world, from here in this country, from Israel, from the Middle East. And it's amazing that people who come from Israel are usually a lot more tolerant than the supporters of Israel in the West. You sit with them, you have discussion. You may not agree on everything, you probably disagree on most things, but at least they are willing to have a debate and to understand. And it might surprise some of you that contrary to all these public appeals not to meet with certain people and not to talk with certain people, actually in secret, the top leaders of the Jewish community in this country meet with me, and we've had discussions, and there were occasions when I was even approached by top Israeli advisors to the prime ministers and other former top politicians, because they want to understand. See, without understanding the other point of view, this conflict can never be resolved. And that's why today, when we're talking about the current situation, it's a very dire situation. It's not a pleasant one. Every party involved in the conflict is in predicament. Nothing is moving forward. And the reason for this is that a new actor came to the scene, and this actor is rejected, is denied. The other actors are unwilling to do business with, or even think about approaching or having a discussion with. And here I'm referring to Hamas, who in January 2006 won an election, a parliamentary election, that George W. Bush insisted on having conducted in the territories. It was George Bush who said he wanted to see democracy in Iraq, he wanted to see democracy in Afghanistan, he wanted to see democracy everywhere, so that people understand what America is about. In Palestine, the results turned not to be favorable, and we've been in a predicament since then. Hamas was told after winning the election that it had to accept three conditions. And these three conditions became known as the Quartet conditions. The United States, the United Nations, the European Union, and the Russian Federation. Hamas was told it had to accept Israel's right to exist, it had to renounce violence and disarm, and it had to accept all the agreements that had until then been concluded between Israel and the PLO. Of course, had Hamas agreed to any of these conditions, Hamas would cease to exist, because the very reason that Hamas exists, and the very reason that Hamas is so popular, and why it won the election in January 2006, is that it provided a different outlook to the conflict, an alternative outlook, and it seemed to the majority of the Palestinians worldwide, and not just inside the territories, to be more loyal to the Palestinian dream, to the Palestinian rights. After all, for us Palestinians, it's not a question of Yasser Arafat or Ahmad Yassin or Fatah or Hamas. It's a question of who represents us, who represents our claims. And my mother was 17 years old when she and her parents and other siblings were thrown out of their home in Beersheba. And for me, and for my mother before me, and for my children and my grandchildren, it will always be my mother's house. That's the issue for me. It's not even the issue of having a Palestinian state, because that was never really a problem. We never had a Palestinian state in our history. Always talk about the state, two-state solution, one-state solution. It's a very recent thing. Of course, there might come a time when we have to sit down and talk about the details of the geopolitics. But not until and unless our individual basic human rights are addressed.